Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to The Global Current. I'm Ian Fichet.
And I'm Liam Scollins.
Today in news, the assassination of North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un's half-brother.
Aggression in the South China Sea. In analysis, Al-Shabab militants attack a Kenyan military base in Somalia.
And hardliners in Iran and the United States spar over foreign policy debate.
Then, an interview with Professor Binneh Minteh.
And now, Yilin Du reports on the assassination of Kim Jong-un's half-brother Kim Jong-Nam.
On February 14, 2017, Kim Jong-un's half-brother Kim Jong-nam was reported assassinated by two women with toxic needle punctures at Malaysia's capital airport. According to the New York Times, Kim Jong-nam, aged 45, was waiting for his flight to Macau when he began to feel dizzy. He was then carried to the airport clinic where he experienced a mild seizure. Kim Jong-nam was then transferred to the Putrajaya hospital. He died on the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The New York Times reported North Korea's news claims the cause of death was from poison needle punctures. The Star, a Malaysian newspaper, quoted the Malaysian police reported, "He told the receptionist at the departure hall that someone had grabbed him from behind and splashed a liquid on his face." The Korean embassy has already requested the body of Kim Jong-nam. In an article by the New York Times, experts on Korea politics suspect that Kim Jong-un may have ordered the assassination. Kim Jong-nam is favored by China.
Kim Jong-nam has been China's favorite. The Chinese government has been financially supporting Kim Jong-nam because Beijing looked to him as the next North Korean leader in case an emergency occurs. For Kim Jong-un, eliminating his half-brother favored by Beijing was necessary, especially because he himself did not have good relations with China.
Jay Koo, director of the U.S. Korea Institute at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, said, maybe Kim Jong-nam was about to do something drastic that would either compromise the regime or the family. The New York Times announced that the Royal Malaysia Police said on Wednesday afternoon they arrested a woman with a Vietnam passport who had seen the security footage at the airport. In another article by New York Times, two other suspects have been arrested. One of the suspects is an Indonesian woman, Siti Aisyah, aged 25. Aisyah is also seen on the security camera footage. The third woman that was arrested had been taken in to assist in the investigation process. The Malaysian news reported that the Royal Police is looking for 4 more male suspects. There are more people involved in this assassination than the 2 women in the security camera footage. The Star reported that Kim Jong-un was seen after his brother's assassination for the first time on the 16th of February. Kim Jong-un is celebrating the anniversary of his father, Kim Jong-il's birthday. This is Yilin Du for the Global Current.
Up next, Joseph Arico brings us a report on tensions between regional powers in the South China Sea.
Over the last few years, relations between America and China have deteriorated as both global superpowers push to be stronger nations. On Monday, February 13, 2017, United States President Donald Trump met with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. This raised concerns with the Chinese foreign minister as the President of the United States discussed the validity of Chinese claims on the Senkaku Islands. No matter what anyone says or does, it cannot change the fact that the Diaoyu Islands belong to China and cannot shake China's resolve and determination to protect national sovereignty and territory, Foreign Minister Geng Shuang said in a conference, U.S. News reports. Disputes over the claim over these islands have stretched on now as the United States continues to back Japan's claim over the islands. However, the foreign minister has claimed that China's stake on these islands are legitimate and that China's stake reaches back even into ancient times. The United States' previous president, Barack Obama, claimed not to pick a side in this scenario, but ex-President Barack Obama used a similar language as the current presidency when addressing the issues of the ownership of these islands. This, however, is not the only scenario in conflict at the current moment. China's foreign minister also has warned the United States against planning naval patrols throughout the South China Sea because he sees these actions as a challenge of China's sovereignty. The foreign minister claims that the tensions in the South China Sea had been eased due to the hard work between China and Southeast Asian countries. However, American guided missile destroyer USS Decatur went on a freedom navigation tour through the Paracel Islands last October. United States naval operations also claim that the Navy has ran operations and defended the Indo-Asian Pacific Sea for the last 70 years, Reuters reports. However, China has laid claim to the sea and continues to try and push its reach over the area. The Chinese foreign minister has also encouraged the United States to back down its naval patrols. China's fiery and furious responses raise concerns as diplomatic conflicts with China have become more and more intensive over the last few months. The United States of America has also raised concern over Chinese man-made islands in the South China Sea, as well as the establishment of military installations and the increase of size of the Chinese Navy. United States Press Secretary Sean Spicer has made a statement on the South China Sea regarding U.S. interests.
I think areas in the South China Sea that are part of international waters and international activities, I think the U.S. is going to make sure that we protect our interests there. So it's a question of if those islands are in fact in international waters and not part of China proper, then yeah, we're going to make sure that we defend international territories from being taken over by one country.
The mounting concern of all-out war with China have been raised, and many fear that it is possible it will break out into military conflict. Hopefully, China, Southeast Asia, Japan, and the United States can sit down and try and work out a reasonable agreement for the current state of the South China Sea. This is Joseph Arico reporting for the Global Current.
And now, Eric Chrysatelli discusses the implications of a recent attack by Somali terrorist group known as Al-Shabab.
On January 27th, Al-Shabab militants attacked Kulbiao, a Kenyan military base in Somalia, killing at least 68 soldiers. The attack began at dawn as 2 trucks armed with explosives rammed into the barrier, causing an explosion to rip through the base. According to Captain Nur Muhuddin, a Somali National Army officer stationed at Kulbiao, the intense firefight lasted about an hour before the militants secured the base. BBC News spoke with Zusen Dere, a witness of the attack. He stated that militants took the ammunition and trucks that were left by the military forces and retreated. This attack is another bold move for the Al-Shabab military group as they continue to fight for control of Somalia. Nearly a year before the Battle of Kulbiao, Al-Shabab attacked the town of El Ade. While the military did not give details of the casualties in that attack, Kenyan media reports suggested that at least 100 soldiers were killed. Shortly after the attack on Kulbiao, Al-Shabab attacked a hotel in Mogadishu, killing at least 28 people. They have even extended their attacks to Burundian bases. Although Al-Shabab has been pushed out of major towns and cities of Somalia, it maintains its presence in the rural areas outside of the cities, where military forces have difficulty reacting to attacks in these outlying areas. Witnesses have confirmed claims of the number of Kenyans killed after the battle occurred, although there is no consensus regarding the number of dead soldiers. Sheikh Abdis Abu Musab, an Al-Shabab representative, said at least 51 Kenyan soldiers were killed, without reporting the losses of Al-Shabab. In addition, a Kenyan military spokesperson said 70 militants were killed. Kenyan military officials have dismissed the claims by Al-Shabab, instead reporting that, quote, the soldiers repulsed the terrorists and killed scores, and that the base was not overrun. Another witness, Halima Kushau, observed the Kenyan soldiers retreating and expressed her fear of a fight between the two sides. Somali forces are supposed to take on more responsibilities as the African Union mission in Somalia is expected to withdraw by the end of 2020. However, security concerns and increased Al-Shabab attacks have delayed the presidential elections, a government step which could prove crucial in helping the nation recover from decades of civil war. Last year, Kenya, which contributes 3,600 troops to the 20,000-strong force, along with Uganda, which has more than 6,000 troops in Somalia, threatened to withdraw their soldiers if Western nations do not plug funding gaps. A number of Ethiopian troops have already been withdrawn due to this controversy as well. With the incessant attacks launched by Al-Shabab, many wonder if the nations involved in Somalia will continue to maintain their presence in supporting the United Nations-backed government. Will they leave and allow the affiliate of al-Qaeda to gain control of a nation that has suffered misfortune and misery for decades? President Trump has not signaled that any major policy decisions will soon be made in regards to Africa, but analysts believe that Trump will prioritize security issues, particularly the fight against terrorist groups operating in the region such as Al-Shabab, Al-Qaeda, and Boko Haram. Under this mission, the U.S. has been conducting drone strikes and other attacks against Al-Shabab for many years. Last year, one strike killed more than 150 militants at a training camp. Others have resulted in the deaths of senior militant leaders. A strong U.S. commitment to ensuring peace and stability can show dominance on the world stage, but will also place the nation in another complex struggle comparable to the interventions in Iraq and Afghanistan, where it has been difficult for an effective government to maintain peace and stability. Whether or not the U.S. will take that risk in Somalia remains to be seen. This is Liam Scollins reading for Eric Christatelli for the Global Current. Next up, Graham DeGroff analyzes the dueling foreign policies of Iran and the United States.
On January 29, 2017, U.S. sources reported that the Islamic Republic of Iran carried out a controversial missile test. It has since been confirmed by Iran that a ballistic missile was launched. The missile traveled some 600 miles before detonating. However, it is unclear if the detonation was intentional or accidental. The missile is reportedly a medium-range ballistic missile, similar to the previous object launched in July. Tensions were high, however, as many Western nations labeled the launch an outright breach of UN Resolution 2231, passed in 2015, as well as the controversial nuclear deal. Iran, which in the 2015 deal agreed not to test nuclear-capable missiles, claims otherwise. The Iranian Foreign Minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, asserted the missiles were not nuclear-capable and that the launch was in the field of legitimate defense. This incident is particularly significant as it was the first Iranian launch for the Trump administration. President Trump himself has been an outspoken critic of the Iran nuclear deal, referring to it as, quote, the worst ever signed, and has previously vowed to renegotiate the deal. His then National Security Advisor, General Michael Flynn, warned that Iran was now on notice. The U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, had this to say after a sudden UNSC meeting to discuss the test.
The United States is not naive. We are not going to stand by. You will see us call them out as we said we would, and you're also going to see us act accordingly. We are committed to making sure that they understand this is not anything we will ever accept. We are also going to go through with making sure that the prohibitions that we talked about, that no country should be supplying Iran.
The test comes at a time when both the United States and Iran seek to present themselves as highly capable and willing to pursue their national interests, and also while animosity between the two states is rising. Recently, rallies were held across Iran to celebrate their 1979 revolution. While historically, such rallies frequently featured anti-American and anti-Israeli sentiments, such as the burning of the American flag, as well as showcasing Iran's ballistic missiles, this year's anniversary celebration was different. No missiles were on parade, and while general anti-American sentiment was still present, many Iranians in the Tehran marched through insults that specifically targeted the new White House administration. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani spoke to the crowd, declaring that Iran will strongly answer to any threat, but seek to avoid tensions in the region and the world. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has similarly spoken out against U.S. actions, saying the new administration has shown the real face of the United States. In response to the missile launch, the United States has imposed additional targeted sanctions on Iranian individuals and companies that support the Iranian missile program. These sanctions are assumed to be the first of several retaliatory efforts. Rumors that the Trump team consider classifying the entire Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization have not helped these tensions. The Revolutionary Guard is a military force oversaw by the Ayatollah alone, focusing on the missile program, standard forces, as well as the Quds Force, an elite group involved in clandestine foreign operations. The Quds Force itself was sanctioned in 2007 for providing aid and material to terrorist groups. However, designating the entirety of the Revolutionary Guard, a powerful military as well as political and economic institution in Iran, as a terrorist organization has not been pursued by previous administrations. Friction between the two nations will likely continue, as White House policies are reoriented to be more focused on checking Iranian power moves in the region. Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has criticized the past efforts and described the pivot as such.
Iran continues to threaten U.S. friends and allies in the region. The Trump administration condemns such actions by Iran that undermine security, prosperity, and stability throughout and beyond the Middle East, and which places American lives at risk. President Trump has severely criticized the various agreements reached between Iran and the Obama administration, as well as the United Nations, as being weak and ineffective. Instead of being thankful to the United States in these agreements, Iran is now feeling emboldened. As of today, we are officially putting Iran on notice.
Hardline rhetoric on both sides seems to be the new norm, but will the words be the farthest ascent of this conflict? As the civil war in Yemen ends its second year of fighting, reportedly Iranian-backed Houthi rebels continue to clash with the government forces, supported by Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states. A proxy war between Sunni and U.S.-aligned Saudi Arabia and Shia Iran for the region influence continues, as does the potential for Iran to go closer to Russia. Just a day after Iran's recent missile test, a Saudi frigate was reportedly hit by Houthi-launched missiles off the coast of Yemen. The risk of open conflict in the region rises, but with both Iran and the United States' attempts to exert their conflicting policy goals, what is the potential for a non-localized conflict? With vocal hawks present in both nations and divisions of the P5+1 coalition on the preservation of peace versus the assertion of their influence, the potential for conflict is present. However, such conflict would be extremely costly and mostly unpopular. The U.S. public will likely not support a war, which from the outset would be compared to the quagmires of the past Middle Eastern interventions. Furthermore, as the Islamic State still holds territory in northern Iraq and Syria, the evidence of the last power vacuum due to U.S. intervention is still evident. It remains to be seen whether U.S.-Iranian relations can be improved or whether hostilities will bubble over. This is Graham DeGroff reporting for Global Current.
Finally this morning, Daniel Kim brings us an interview with Professor Binneh Minteh on the topic of global security issues.
Hello, this is Daniel Kim reporting for Global Current. Today we are with Professor Minteh, and we are going to discuss about the security issues that are facing the international arena in both developed and underdeveloped nations. And once again, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule for today.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'll be glad to discuss some of those issues with you. Thank you.
All right. So recently there has been news about ISIS striking fear, and Europe has been taking a lot of coverage lately. And do you, in your field of expertise, do you have an idea why those acts of terrorism was committed in Europe, and first of all, even though the Western Europe is considered one of the most developed continents?
It's a very interesting question that you brought about as far as terrorism and ISIS in particular targeting Europe. Yes, Europe is indeed a very advanced region in the world. It has done quite a lot more in comparison to other parts of the world. But what we have to understand is Europe as a region is faced with a problem of migration right now, and this migration flow is likely coming from what I call the failed and the failing states, predominantly from Middle Eastern countries, Syria, Libya, of course Afghanistan, right, and Yemen, and even northeastern Turkey, with PKK activities there. So this instability in the Middle East has led to a surge in the movement of people beyond epic proportions across transnational boundaries. So for the most part, that is where we see all these problems emerging from. And I think from a counter-terrorism perspective, I would like to argue that the European countries don't have a common strategy in response to these threats. Because if you look at it, for the most part, UK, United Kingdom, has done very well in response in their counter-terrorism efforts. Their strategies are different from the strategies in France, in Belgium, and in Germany now. So we see France, a lot of attacks. We see Belgium, a lot of attacks. And I think part of the reason has to do with the variations in counter-terrorism strategies. So the Europeans, they developed, with the help of their American counterparts, they develop counter-terrorism strategies that engage the local communities a lot more. So they engage them, in ways that made the community to be very active in ensuring that these cells, these terror operatives, don't infiltrate the communities. I think United States succeeded very well in doing that, and Europe has really learned. Actually, UK has really learned that from its American counterparts. So now in the UK, the communities there are very engaged. Local Muslim communities, they are very involved. Look at the mayor of London, he's a Muslim. Yeah, and now a lot of these Muslim communities in London, they are involved in the counter-terrorism efforts through information sharing. But whereas in France, it's different. So there is that divide, that disconnect between the state and the local Muslim communities. The majority, if you look at the Muslims there, a lot of these kids have this feeling of alienation They don't have this sense of belonging. So I think we've seen similar things even in Belgium. So I suggest that the French and Belgian authorities need to do a lot more in engaging local communities and making them part of the collective national efforts in containing the threats of ISIS and other terror groups for the most part.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so, like, going off what you said about this disconnect between the Muslim population and European states in certain European states such as France and Belgium, it's like, do you believe that it's like not only you have to realize that there is this connection that has to be made in order to have a better security, but do you also believe that there needs to be, like, what some proponents argue, for more intelligence?
I mean, when I say the disconnect, let me make that clear. Counterterrorism should encompass a multi-dimensional approach, which means engaging local communities, the collection and sharing of information, intelligence comes in, and you get effective intelligence, effective information if you engage the communities a lot more. Yeah, so it should be a multi-dimensional approach, right? Engaging communities, intelligence sharing, and exchanges for the most part. All that is a part of the counterterrorism efforts.
Then why do you think that these European countries are not connecting with their citizens on issues like these? Then if engaging with the local population is going to better
I mean, when we look at France, for example, I think France, the case of France has been, in terms of the relationship between the communities, the polarizing nature. It did not start today. It's rooted in history. So these are French, let's say, Algerians, Tunisians whose parents immigrated, right? Libyans, right? Moroccans, and these people were born there, right? But that sense of belongings tend to be lacking. They feel alienated. They feel they don't belong. They feel they are not. They are considered second-class citizens, right? I don't think France addressed that very well from the beginning, and I think it has gotten really worse. And of course, terror groups, they tap into society's such vulnerabilities, right? They look at risk populations, you know, that they can tap into and fill a vacuum that the state is supposed to fill, right? Because if you look at these kids, a lot of this research showed that a lot of these operatives who are handled, who are killed, you know, some of them are like, they are convicts. They committed crimes before. They are alcoholics. They are like into drugs and all that, right? Yeah. So I think we have to look at the problem from broader lenses. You understand? The problem is not only, it's not only a religious problem. It's not even a religious problem. I think the problem is a deeply rooted socio-political and socio-economic problem that the governments did not effectively address. And if you compare France and to UK, the UK government did very well, right? They've engaged, they've pumped resources into these communities, right? And their engagement have changed. I mean, the tone around for a lot of these at-risk kids Some of them they become very good citizens. They are all, they're going to school, they are engaged, they are doing positive things. So it's difficult to penetrate societies like that.
And then one final question would be regarding with the United Nations. And well, recently it announced the sustainable goals list of sustainable goals reached by 2030.
Right.
It was like for its member states. And then in the context of the international security realm, so for the underdeveloped nations who are also trying to, I guess, reach these sustainable goals, so how do you think they could possibly address the security issues while also trying to fill other international agendas? So like if they don't have the proper resources or the training available to meet those challenges.
Yeah, very interesting question. In fact, I think there is quite a sort of a confusion around what security really is. I think we have to understand that the concept of security 20 years ago or 15 years ago and the concept of security right now, it has really changed. Yes, United Nations indeed set out all those goals, and it did very, very well. The international community did very well. It has definitely contributed in reducing poverty, providing opportunities, improving healthcare, maternal health, providing education for a significant percentage of the population. Very true, we should give them credit. But I think when it comes to addressing the challenges faced by these underdeveloped countries, I think the world needs to continue focusing on what I call the human security dimensions, right? Which largely still emphasizes developed nations willing to commit their resources in building capacity for these underdeveloped countries, providing resources to strengthen education, providing resources to strengthen healthcare, to provide job opportunities for young people, and to continue combating the threats of diseases and poverty. I think political instability in a lot of these underdeveloped countries, if you look at the nature of their political conflicts, it is intra, it is within the state, it is people fighting for either for better opportunities, people fighting for progress, people fighting for, let's say, better education opportunities, better health care, right? So they align themselves with political groups within the state based on those such agendas. So I think in order to strengthen global security in particular, or in general, I think we need to focus on these human security dimensions. We need to make sure we help people, give them opportunities, jobs, provide educational opportunities for them, provide healthcare facilities for them, provide a platform or a foundation that will create an atmosphere of living in dignity, right? Pursuing a livelihood. That is humane. I think even the threats that we are faced with today, the threats of terrorism, terrorist groups only infiltrate societies that have such vacuums, where people are struggling.
Right.
This is true in Iraq. I mean, terror groups, they take advantage of vulnerable societies to recruit, right? Because they have resources, they can give it to them. They feel the vacuum of government. This is true in Afghanistan. I know this is true in Somalia.
Right.
And this is true in Nigeria, where Boko Haram is operating. This is true even in Mali. I mean, in those Sahel countries where we have Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb and other terror groups operating. So we need to strengthen human security dimensions to be able to effectively deal with the overall challenge of security that we face globally today.
All right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we can afford. Thank you again, Professor, for taking time out of your busy schedule. And this is Dan Kim reporting for Global Currents.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Global Current. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm Ian Fache.
And I'm Liam Scollins.
Same time.
Same place.
Next week.
The Global Current is brought to you by the School of Diplomacy and International Relations at Seton Hall University. Our executive producer is Liam Scollins, our associate producer is Morgan Mount, our news editor is John Trudeau, our analysis editor is Marissa Hutton, our technical producer is Trevor West, and our interview segment was produced by Daniel Kim. The Global Current theme song is Acid Jazz by Kevin MacLeod. You've been listening to The Global Current on WSOU 89.5 FM, Seton Hall's Pirate Radio.